Welcome back to Chamber Exchange, the TV show. Very pleased to have with us in our second segment Wilson Kiriungi, who is the president, and Susan Dufresne, who is the director of clinical services from Autism Allies. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, Susan, maybe we'll start with some of the clinical questions.
Okay.
And just very basic. I mean, I think many of our viewers probably have a general understanding of what autism is, but maybe you could give it, a clinical definition from your experience and background.
Very good. I will. It's a spectrum disorder, usually characterized by a wide variety of challenges and strengths. It's diagnosed with those challenges in three main areas: communication, repetitive behavior, and social skills. Those tend to be the areas that would define some level of challenge in comparison to a typical child when diagnosed.
Right, and so one of the things that just to go back for a minute, Autism Allies is an organization that works to
Yes.
works.
We're an insurance-based organization. Our clients come to us for ABA services. We provide in-home, center-based, or a combination thereof, depending on the need and what has been determined through an extensive treatment plan that's developed within the referral process.
And you use the term ABA. That stands for
Applied Behavior Analysis.
Okay.
Yes.
And you mentioned those kind of three areas of within the spectrum. I think, for an individual family that's out there and they've got a young person, those are things that if they can identify, that would want to probably make a referral, talk to their healthcare provider about.
Yes.
Maybe we could walk through that process.
Typically, the autism is diagnosed before the age of 3. Most pediatricians have some sort of a screening tool there that parents would fill out that would alert the pediatrician to make a referral. Those professions that diagnose autism are pediatric neurologists, child psychologists, and developmental pediatricians specifically. So they would refer that child out for a diagnosis.
And then based on that, the health insurance or provider would make referrals so that clinicians, people who are trained could come out and work to address some of the needs. As you mentioned, there are strengths and challenges that come with the diagnosis, and that's what you do. Yes.
Typically the doctor who diagnoses will give the parent resources of different providers, us being one of them, along with some suggestions for the 100-day toolkit. That's something that parents could access through Autism Speaks now. It guides the parents through the first 100 days of diagnosis, trying to give them some structure as to what to do.
Yeah.
And so given that, they then call different companies such as ours and are typically put on a waiting list. There is a vast need,
right.
And the waiting lists can be quite lengthy.
Yeah. And Wilson, the history of Autism Allies, the organizational mission, how you got into this work?
Waiting list.
Waiting
list. So back in 2015 or so, I was actually working at UMass, and I understood within the community, I've lived in Worcester for such a long time, I'm connected to the community. I understood what the need was in the community for this particular service, ABA, which is I think the only approved treatment for autism, and the only therapy geared towards autism that the insurance can pay for. So that's what Susan meant when she said that we're insurance based. So 2015 or thereabout, you might recall, I think there was an omnibus bill that was passed in the legislature that mandated, or rather allowed Mass Health to start covering for this service, ABA. So at that time, going back to 5 years prior to 2015 October, private insurances had already been mandated.
Right.
So what I saw was that, we have all these private insurances already covering for ABA. and they cannot cater for the need that's out there.
And now you're
What-
adding a whole nother
Exactly.
client base that are eligible for these services
Exactly.
with Mass Health.
Exactly.
How do you make sure that that population, which
Right.
is vulnerable in a whole other
Yes.
variety of ways,
Yep.
can get this?
Spot on. That's how we came in. And initially, we thought that was going to be our sole focus. It still is the core of what we do is the mass health populations. We feel that we have a pretty good understanding by primarily being people who have lived and worked in central Massachusetts. And some of the unique things that we've had to cater for within that population is understanding, linguistic and cultural needs. That comes into how you hire. ABA is a very intrusive therapy. We literally go and live in people's homes.
Right, right.
We're there for several hours a day in the kitchens, in the living rooms. If you're not gonna pair a family with a staff who understands the certain cultural nuances that might come into play
Right.
with your service delivery, you're not gonna be successful.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned, the cultural competency, the linguistic piece are really critical, and having a wife that works in special education. I mean, and this therapy is critical to both the educational and emotional well-being of the children and families, and whether they get these services or not are really game changers for kids and families. So. And when you think about just the Mass Health population, very similar to the Worcester Public School population, I think 90 different languages spoken in the Worcester Public Schools. So,
Oh, wow.
so kind of navigating that, similar to probably the Mass Health population, hiring and finding a workforce has got to be a whole nother set of challenge
Yes.
for you.
Absolutely, especially now.
And how are you going about doing that?
Well, we're going beyond the traditional sources, the usual job boards and whatnot. We're going into the community. We're going into people that have a pull, a sway, the youth leaders and people within churches. We're teaming up with schools, colleges,
Right.
to get the jobs out. We've ramped up we're actually in the process of just revamping our training. So that way we're able to take in people who do not necessarily have a background in the field, but have the passion and the aptitude for it. But it's a challenge, but it comes down to just using the non-traditional sources because
Right,
it's just
right.
difficult.
And opening of a new center in Worcester?
Yes.
I'll let whoever wants to talk about that.
The center is actually exciting because it's located over near the Chandler Street area, over near Polar Park.
Yeah.
It's right behind the Worcester Public School Administration building.
Oh, okay, the
Right.
Durkin Administration Building.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Behind Irving Street.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the way we envision that site is it would be able to provide, it's set up as a home. It is a historical building that is actually set up with the kitchens and the shower and the washers and the
Oxford
dry-
Street?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. I think I know exactly the home you're talking about.
Yeah.
And so that provides an opportunity for our kiddos who need to practice those
Right.
living skills that we may not be able to go into the home because maybe it's a single parent and they work quite a bit. They go to school, they need to come to, we're not able to be in the home. We need to be, when we're in the home, there has to be a parent available in the home. So this provides those adolescents or children with these opportunities to practice those in real environments.
Got
So
it.
we're excited
And we have a
about
minute left, and Wilson, I'll let you have the final word before we wrap up. We mentioned the word ABA. Susan had mentioned that. How does somebody go about obtaining those services? Just if they think there's a child or in the three areas that Susan talked about.
So again, the determination, the diagnosis will happen at the pediatrician,
Okay.
developmental pediatrician level of licensed psychologist. Once the child has that diagnosis, usually a parent will get pretty good advice for sources of, and one of the recommendation will be ABA.
All right.
And yeah.
And I just want to, sorry, maybe Susan will get the last
Yeah,
word.
yeah.
So Susan, those 3 years, if you're a parent, aunt, uncle, grandparent, a caregiver of young people, what are the 3 areas again if you see?
Communication, social skills, and repetitive behavior.
So if you see those things
Yeah.
kind of
deficits
manifest
in those.
themselves, then talk to your primary care or pediatrician to
Absolutely.
get that. Well, thank you on a really important issue that is growing and making sure that all populations have access to this is really important. So congratulations, Wilson, Susan, thank you. And we're going to come right back for our next segment of Chamber Exchange, a TV show.
These days, you've got your hands full in life. That's why we help you bank simply and securely with tools like Face ID and Touch ID. It's why we make it easy to make purchases on the go and get cash back while you're at it. Why we help you quickly deposit checks wherever you are. And it's why we lend a hand with sending and receiving money right from your phone. So even when you're on the move, you can manage your finances. Bank Hometown. Unlock your potential.
This is Radio Worcester. Local talk, local news, local events. We got it, and we've got opinions that you're going to want to hear.
That Worcester will be thought of and spoken about.
We're live every morning, 6 to 10 a.m., and if you can't catch us then, you can find us online day and night at radioworcester.com. This is your town. This is your morning show. Talk of the Commonwealth with Hank and Ben.